Today, we're going to be seeing what all the hype is about with the Fortin Meshuggah Preamp pedal. Fortin have released their second preamp pedal after the Natas, the Meshuggah Preamp pedal. And this is based on the Meshuggah amplifier that released several years ago. I got to try it at NAMM. It was awesome. And then there's also a Neural DSP plugin based around this. So the Meshuggah amp that this is based off of is a modded Plexi style amp. And this is very much in that vein of modded Plexi. As a matter of fact, this might be the best Plexi style preamp pedal I've ever tried. It's pretty damn good. So let's just run through all these features real quick so we can start messing around with it and turning some knobs. So you'll notice that there are two gain controls on here. Now, gain 1 is actually only active when channel 1 is on. Channel 1 is the red channel, so when this LED glows red, that means you're on channel 1. Green means you're on channel 2. Channel 1 is actually the higher gain setting because it introduces another gain stage, which is why you have this gain control here. And you can see I'm pretty much diming these. These are basically maxed out to get that nice modern high gain. There's also a low and high switch, so essentially higher gain, lower gain. It doesn't just saturate more, it's a bit more compressed as a result, so it's a little bit quieter. Not that that's an issue because the MVC control here, which is the volume control, this thing you can see here as well, and you'll see it more in the out of mix. There is the bass, middle, and treble EQ controls, and they are definitely very powerful and have a large effect on the sound. But I was pleasantly surprised that I ended up setting this thing and these responded how I would expect a Marshall, especially a Plexi style amp, to respond. Because Plexi style amps, if nobody's ever played them, are very bright. Very, very, very bright. The same with like something like a JCM 800, super bright. And so I actually ended up rolling off some of the top end, which I don't do a lot with these kind of pedals. And you end up pushing the mid-range to get that kind of cut, clarity, to get that kind of, you know, jumping out of the mix that you want. When I do the out of mix, you're going to hear the mid-range really helps this thing come alive. And that's pretty much true for an actual Marshall amp as well, or a Marshall style amp. Just like on a Plexi style amp as well, I'm pushing the bass a bit, because they can be thinner, really bright sounding amps like I was talking about. So you actually want to push more bass. Even though I'm going into this thing with an 8-string, I'm still pushing the bass. And then just like I was talking about with the treble, I do have it backed off a bit because the more you push this up, it doesn't just get brighter, it definitely gets more stringy. It definitely gets, at a certain point, you can get even kind of harsh, which again, very much like a Plexi. And then you have your channel switch here, your bypass foot switch, and then you have a Zool built in, their noise gate. Now, I did notice with this, I am running the Zool a bit higher up than I do on my actual Zool, all the different Zools I've owned. I don't run any of them this high, but still absolutely works great mixing it all in one unit, so you don't need a noise gate after it. So that's all the features and details of the pedal. For the in-mix, I was plugged into this with my Ibanez FTM33 because why wouldn't I use Friedrich's guitar to demo a Meshuggah pedal? I mean, obvious choice. And I'm going to be plugging into that in the out of mix, but I've had some people ask me since I posted a picture about buying one of these, you know, how does it sound with like a 6-string guitar or something closer to standard? And that is a great question. It turns out awesome. So in the out of mix, I'm going to switch at one point from the 8-string to I have a 6-string FGN Neo Classic, and I have that, well, not in standard, it is in D standard, so not E standard, but D, and I have that with a set of Bill Kelleher Hellbender pickups in it. So I'll switch over to that at one point so we can hear it with a 6-string guitar. And when I'm messing with it with the 6-string, at one point I also will boost this with one of the Fortin modded TS9s that they did with Godlike a while back, just so you can hear how this thing takes an overdrive as well. I had the pedal going directly into the effects loop return of my Friedman BE50 Deluxe because I figure it's very much a Plexi style thing, Marshall style thing. My Friedman is very much a kind of hot rodded Marshall kind of thing. So it just seemed natural and it sounded great and felt great. So I ended up using that. And that's going into my 2-Notes Captor X, which does have a DV77 and VM1265 IR blend. It's mostly the DV77, but a little bit of the VM1265 just blended in. And if you dig it, I do have that IR for free in a Dropbox link down below. But let's check it out. So a modded Plexi and then some. It definitely handled that low F on my 8 string like a champion, no boost or anything to cut that low end. And I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Like I was talking about, Plexis are known for being extremely bright, even overly bright in cutting, and can be a bit thin and you need to push that low end. So it makes sense that modern low tune guitars would actually work well with that, with a pinch more gain. And that's what you get here. That extra gain stage you can see absolutely makes it for that red channel. And of course, you basically have to push it all the way to max to get high, nice levels of gain, but it absolutely works. Especially with that 6 string, this thing is immediate thrash metal territory. I just couldn't stop playing thrashy style riffs when I plugged my 6 string into this for the first time. It is absolutely killer for that. I'm pretty sure you're able to see what I was talking about with the different EQ spectrums. You definitely need to boost that bass a bit or it's going to get thin just like on a real Plexi. Of course, this absolutely lives in the mid-range just like a real Marshall style, Plexi style amp does. And of course, like I said, you definitely need to back off that treble. Otherwise, this thing is going to get either too pick attacky, ice picky, or just harsh. but once you get it into the right spot, it sounds absolutely fantastic. Honestly, super impressed with this. Glad that it lived up to all the hype and of course the big band name that's attached to it. This thing absolutely slays, and it's probably the best Plexi style amp in a box pedal I've ever used. It even takes overdrives fantastic. So I'm definitely really happy with it and pleasantly surprised at how good this is with 6 strings as well, and how good for like thrashy style of music it is with a 6 string and something a little bit higher tuned. But would love to know your thoughts if you're interested in picking one of these up, or if you have one, or the amplifier, which lucky you, or have played or owned the plugin from Neural DSP. Leave all those comments down below. I will have a link down below to this and anything else from Fortin if you want to check it out. But thanks for watching. Stay metal.